All right, welcome back to Punk Rock Radar. Today we got a special episode for you. We're doing MxPx with a special guest, so sit back and hold tight.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Punk Rock Radar. We've got another tier list for you. We're doing the legendary band from Washington State, MxPx, and we are joined by a special guest. But first, I'm going to pass it off to Matt. How are you doing today, man?
Dude, I'm doing good. It's a hot day today. I had to fix my grill outside, so I was just all in the sun all day today. But I'm doing good, man. I'm excited for this. And just want to let everyone know that I'm coming into this as like a first-time listener, John. I probably only knew about 5 or 6 MxPx songs. So this was kind of all new to me. So I'm kind of excited to see how everyone feels about my list as a first-time listener. And then also, we have a special guest today. All the way from Canada, we got Aaron.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me on. I love the show and have been looking forward to a time to come on, especially to talk about a band that has changed my life. So thanks for having me.
Of course,
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm very excited. If you don't know Aaron, he's always in our comment section commenting on our videos saying that my list is always wrong and John's is always right. But, hopefully today he will agree with my list and say, John, you're totally off. So, John, with that being said, are you ready to jump in with the first MxPx album?
I'm ready. And it's kind of funny. Like Aaron and I, we've been going back and forth about doing this MxPx list for... It's got to be 2 months. And Aaron is from the Growing Up Punk podcast. And we've been trying to do a collaboration for a while. We finally got everybody together. And Aaron and I, unlike Matt, are 20 plus year listeners of MxPx. For me, it was probably the late 90s, right around that Blink-182 boom, around that time. And the first album we're going to do here, Pokinatcha, was not my first album. But it is MxPx's first album, and the title, I actually found out, I didn't know this, is actually from a Snickers commercial where they were saying Pokinatcha. So that's where the album title came from. But Aaron, I'm going to let you rank this one first. How do you feel about this first one, Pokinatcha? That's a girl that I want
to see. Well, we're going to start with some negativity. How's that?
Hey, I'm for it.
Yeah. So I remember buying this, after I had some of their newer albums. So this was definitely kind of a hard album to adjust to in a lot of ways. I think I mostly bought it, just to have it. But it's not one that I typically go back to. The production is pretty rough on it. But it's fast. There's a lot of songs on it. I think it's an awesome album for a group of, whatever they were, 16, 17 at the time, putting out their first full length album. So I'm going to start by putting this in the D tier, just because it's one that I don't really come back to that often, mostly just because the production is pretty hard to listen to. But yeah, like I said, a great first full length for a group of their age.
All right, Matt, what about you?
Oh, I think I'm going to be a little different there. And so for Pokinatcha, John, I actually liked this album. I found that I was going back to this album a lot. It kind of reminded me of like really early Pennywise, that kind of style, that speed, and how the singer sounded like. So I'm actually putting this one in the B list, John.
See, I thought you would like that because it is like, it's definitely their most like punk rock and skate punk album. But I'm definitely with Aaron here. I'm going D as well. I think it's interesting to see like where a band came from, what their roots are, but in the scope of the discography, this is by far my least favorite album. Yeah, I'm going D. Like I think like Want Ad is a decent song. Like there's some gems sprinkled in here, but overall for me, it's mostly a bust.
Okay.
But the next one, Matt, if you want to take us into it, Teenage Politics.
The one not mad, but I need to forget what it's like and how hard it is to be a teenager.
Yeah, so Teenage Politics, this was another one where, I was listening to it and, I think we listened to 15 albums we're doing or so, but This was another one I came back to a lot for Teenage Politics. I feel like this is a good step up from Pokinatcha, and I'm actually putting this one in A because I felt this was a solid album for their second one, and I feel like they started to hit their stride really well on this album.
That's interesting. Aaron, what about you?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's so cool hearing somebody else's take on it. So it'd be interesting to see when we get into some of the later ones. But yeah, this one for me, I wouldn't say I have a deep connection with this album either, but it definitely holds nostalgic memories, especially with the music videos, the song Teenage Politics, the cover art, and of course the song Punk Rock Show. Again, not an album that I go back to that often, but I definitely enjoy listening to it when it comes on. So this as well is a D tier album for me.
Wow. Aaron, I don't really blame you. Like, I was nervous about these two because I know like they're like revered in a lot of like the old school MxPx fans, but I'm kind of with you too. Like, I was going back and forth. Like, for me, it was between C and B. But I'm gonna go C on Teenage Politics. I kind of thought I would be a little bit higher. Like, I love Punk Rock Show and I love the title track Teenage Politics. But for me, like I said it before, I think they just get so much better. And I want to say too, like how nice was it like back then, like in the 90s where like these big bands were releasing new albums like every single year. Like I feel like nowadays, we're lucky to get a new like album from a big band like every 5 years. It seems like you're lucky. But yeah, I'm going C here. Like we said, I think it's decent, but it's again far from my favorite. And speaking of far from my favorite, I personally am not a fan of cover albums. I think it's fine if there's like one cover on a regular album, and like MxPx is one of those bands. They have no problem putting 20, 30 songs on an album. Why not just sprinkle some of these here and there at one of the other records? Like, I don't need a full album of cover songs. Like, I love Summer of '69. I think that's a great cover. But other than that, there's just very little on here that I come back to. So I probably should have said this in the beginning. So let me do it now. We're going to do 2 full lengths in each tier. And then there's the bonus column you could see. Those are going to be where we're going to put comps and EPs. And there's going to be 1 in each tier. So I'm going to use my bonus tier to put on the cover in the D tier. Aaron, I'm going to pass it to you here.
We were killing time, we were young and restless, we needed to unwind.
Yeah, so I'm going to really switch it up with this. So this was actually the very first MxPx album and probably even punk album I had ever heard. It was on cassette. Some friends had it and brought it over. I didn't even know what playing covers was at the time. I was too young to have ever even heard the original songs, but I knew I liked what I heard. There's definitely some odd songs on here, but the nostalgia overrides that for me. It wasn't until years later that I would be, like at the dentist or something and hear the original songs on the radio and be like, oh, that's what that sounds like. But this one, I'm putting this one in the B tier just because it was so influential for me, and just hearing it and just knowing like I need more of whatever this is. Even just seeing that picture on the cover, it was like, that's what I want to look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, who didn't want the bleached hair back in the 90s, right? I know I had it.
I know you definitely did have it.
I didn't pull it off as cool as he did, but
yeah, not a lot of people can. I mean, that's just the portrait of coolness on that album cover.
Yeah.
But Matt, where are you putting it?
Yeah, John. So I'm with you. This one's going into the D list for me. I didn't feel like these covers were good. And if I want to listen to like cover songs, I'm going to put on Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, man. That's like the only cover band that, I'll put on who do covers well. But yeah, this one, I couldn't really connect to this one. I didn't really like the Summer of '69 cover. I felt like it didn't do the song justice. Yeah, I didn't feel like it did the song justice. I think Bowling for Soup, did that cover a little better. But yeah, so I'm putting this one in D for myself.
All right. Well, I'm pretty sure I know where maybe Aaron and I are going to put this next one. But Matt, I want you to take us into Life in General.
I can do it, I feel fine, I went school, did my time.
Yeah, so Life in General, John. When I was listening to it, I did read a little bit, and I feel like this album is considered like I don't know, like a sacred album to the MxPx community, or this is like the album that everyone really likes and enjoys. And I did get into this one, but I'm putting this one in my A list. I think it's good. It's as good as Teenage Politics, I feel like, but I think it's missing a few things that would put it into S. It's just missing, I don't know, a few more good songs, I feel like, that would make this an S tier for me.
All right, Aaron, what do you have to say about that?
Well, I could go on and on about this album, but this album changed my life in so many ways. You know, even more of how I dressed, wanting tattoos, wearing band merch. You know, for me, this was the exact style that I was looking for when I heard this album. This is actually my all-time favorite album in the whole world, and I can listen to it pretty much anytime. I remember hearing it, and again, like, I grew up in a small town. I didn't have, huge tours coming through or even really internet then. So it was just whatever I was exposed to was what really influenced me right off the bat. And this was one of those albums. And I mean, the cover art is awesome.
Yes.
And just everything about it, when I put it on, just takes me right back. And I just love it so much.
So I'm assuming S.
So it's going in at the S tier for sure.
Nice. Yeah. So I fully planned on putting this in the S tier, but I'm actually going A. I try to do this like a little unbiased. I try not to let nostalgia sway me too much, but I mean, I still listen to this album all the time. I think Middle Name is one of my all-time favorite songs. It's one of my favorite songs to play on the guitar if I'm just hanging out up here. It is the seminal MxPx album for sure. Just in my personal opinion, there's actually two that I like better. Like, I surprised myself when I was re-listening, but personally, I'm going A with Life in General, despite having like one of the best album covers of all time, I think. But I'll take us into the next one, which is actually my first S tier record, and I believe this is the major label debut. This is Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo.
When you know what was you are the man of the way to change. You're the big man.
And yeah, I'm going S on this one. I think up to this point, sonically, this is the best sounding record by a mile. I think like the first half is just full of like fan favorites, and then you got Set the Record Straight, Inches from Life, just full of like my favorite MxPx songs. And I kind of think it's funny. I didn't know this either. The title is actually in reference to some fan criticism that didn't like Life in General. They said the band was dying out, slowly going the way of the buffalo. But with that said, this is my first S tier record. Aaron, where are you putting this one?
Yeah, I got to go S with this one too. I was so hyped for this, to the follow up to Life in General. I didn't really know when it was coming out. Like I said before, I don't know if I really had internet at the time, but I had a brother's friend who came over to skateboard in our driveway, and he had this album. And I just remember being enamored with the songs I was hearing, especially songs like Fist versus Tact, which kind of had a more melodic hardcore sound to it, kind of bringing back some of that sound from maybe Pokinatcha days. This is, again, another album I can put on pretty much any time. It just takes me back. And on the podcast, I had Steve Kravac on, who produced this album. And it was so cool just hearing his side of the story about working with the band. He did on Life in General as well, and this one. And I just think it's a really good progression. Like, it still has those fast songs like Life in General had, but there's definitely a bit more dynamic to the songs. So yeah, this is an S tier album for me.
Awesome. Matt, where are you putting
that? So I can't disagree with both of you. This is definitely going into the S tier for me. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, because, I'm still new to MxPx, but I felt like this album may have helped pave the way, kind of where we saw the scene changing from that skate punk or that fast punk into more of like an emo style kind of punk. And I felt like this album, or kind of a poppier kind of punk, kind of helped pave the way for that, or kind of led the way in changing the style or what the scene was at that moment, I think in 98.
I definitely think so. I think like, especially bands like Good Charlotte and Newfound Glory always, I don't know about this album, but talking about MxPx as an influence overall, like I think that's even more prevalent on like the next couple. But yeah, I definitely agree that this had to have at least shaped some of the landscape for pop punk to come. for me anyway, I'll take us into the next one too, because this was my very first MxPx album. In the late 90s, I picked up Let It Happen.
Why am I in love with a girl who takes me on so badly? Why am I in love with a girl who makes me feel so sadly?
And I told this story before, but I'll say it again. When I was in high school, I would just go to the record store and I'd pick up the CD with the most songs. And I think this one has 30 songs,
32.
maybe 32.
Yeah.
And then they re-released it a couple, 10 years later with even more tracks. But nowadays, maybe I don't want that many songs, but back then it was all about the value for a CD. When you're, maybe you don't even have a job yet, you're in high school, you want 30 songs. So, my favorite songs on here have always been Let It Happen. And then like the first couple, you got Never Learn, Begin to Start, Swing Set Girl. Just so many good songs. And if you guys don't know, this is like kind of the first compilation where it's got some of the songs from the old 7 inches. You got some worse sounding versions of Life in General songs, and then some misspellings. I don't know if this is really South Bend or if this is a Spotify error. This song, I believe, is called Southbound from Life in General. But this is my bonus S tier. Matt, what about you? Where are you putting this one?
Yeah, John. So this was one that, again, like you said, 32 songs. I'm not a big fan of albums that long. But that being said, I am putting this one in A tier for me. I feel like there's another one that can go into S. So I'm just putting this one in A.
All right, Aaron, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, same for me as you, John. This is an S1 for me. Because I was so hungry for new music, especially from this band. I remember this album almost just feeling like a new album. I don't know that I would have been super familiar with what B-sides were.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of saw it. I was like, just kind of extra songs. I also love the artwork, and the booklet had like a whole bunch of pictures kind of from start to that point. And I'm always a sucker for a good CD booklet. And so that stood out to me. And yeah, for lots of these being B-sides, I think this band has, better B-sides than most punk bands. And so this is, again, one that I can go back to a lot. And so this is an S for me.
All right. Yeah. I'm really curious what Matt's bonus S is going to be. I thought this was probably the gimme of the list, was Let It Happen as the bonus S tier. So I'm curious about that. But Aaron, I'm also curious where you're going to put the next one, The Ever Passing Moment, if you want to take us into that one.
Responsibility, what's that? Responsibility, not quite yet.
Yeah, so I knew this album was going to have a poppier sound, which I was a little hesitant to, but I was still excited for it. This was the first MxPx CD that was actually available in a store in my town. So I was super excited about that. I grew to love this album more than expected. The songwriting is fantastic, especially the melodies. The production from Jerry Finn is top notch, and just overall, it's a set of songs that still sound amazing today. So for me, this is an A tier.
Nice. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, so this one, I feel like it was a good follow-up to Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo, right? This is the next full length, I believe, right? Yeah. After that one. So yeah, so I put this one in S tier. This is one that I can go back to and listen to. I like the style on this one, so I put this one in S.
All right. Matt, I thought you'd have this in D. Honestly, I didn't think this was your style at all, but I really didn't want this to happen, but I can't fight the truth. This is my favorite MxPx album. I thought it was, and this is the one I remember getting like the day it came out, and I loved it from the first time I heard it, and listening to all these the last 3 weeks, it just like reaffirmed that for me. The songwriting is undeniable. Maybe you saw what I did there. You got My Life Story, Prove It to the World, Misplaced Memories, Bringing in the Rear. This for me is the template for the first Good Charlotte album. It's the template for the early Newfound Glory albums. This is one of my favorite albums of all time. Easily, it is 5 out of 5. S tier, my favorite MxPx album. If all you old school guys, I apologize, but I'm not going to lie to you. I love this record. I really, really love it. But Matt, I am assuming that the next one, the Renaissance EP, is going to be your bonus S. Am I right or what?
The opposite, and you can't change the opposite and me. Life is pretty strange, and yeah, I think we can agree. You're getting stronger all the time. It's an uphill battle.
Yeah, you're definitely correct. I feel like this one, I thought out of their EPs, to me, was an S tier. Just kind of the style of it. I feel like it was a little more heavier and fast. Something that I kind of like. So this one is definitely going to S. I think Talk of the Town was the song I really liked on this one. So yeah, this one's going into S for me.
Aaron, what do you think of Renaissance? Because I'm definitely not S on this one.
Okay, well, I am. By this point, I was very much more so, I guess, into Fat Records bands. So I was super excited to hear that, my favorite band, MxPx, was releasing an EP on the label, especially knowing it was going to be a bit more raw raw sounding after Ever Passing Moment. Again, while the production is a little bit rough on here, the songs are really cool. It kind of shows a bit different side to the band. I love the kind of, some of the darker, fast songs again. And it's just, when I see the album, it just, kind of takes you back to that time and has a cool kind of aesthetic to this EP.
Mm-hmm. All right, where are you putting this one?
S. Oh no, A for this one.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
And then I have mine in S. It's not showing up there.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm dragging my feet a little bit. Sorry about that, guys. But I remember this coming out. I was definitely heavily into Fat Wreck stuff, just like Aaron said. And this one just never really clicked for me. I don't know why, but I think it's okay. As you could see, like the last three, I put it all in S. So I didn't really feel like the band needed a renaissance, but that's like kind of like a cycle we go through now with like MxPx from this point on. They just keep trying to recapture that magicalness of the early discography, but I'm going B on this one. It's not a cover album, but it's definitely not my favorite. But here we go. Anyway, on to the next full length. Aaron, we've got Before, Everything, and After. What are your thoughts on this one?
Everything sucks when you're gone.
Well, this is definitely the most polished sounding album that they put out, and they could have blown up as a band, but I don't know if they quite did that, even though they had some good opportunities for exposure. This album isn't bad, and it doesn't bother me like it does some MxPx fans, but it's not one I go back to super often. So for that reason, it's a C tier album for me. I also didn't love the cover art, which was a big downside for me, being someone who's really drawn towards the cover art. So this is C for me.
C. All right, Matt, what about you? Before,
I'm totally gonna agree with Aaron. This is one that I probably played once or twice during this. I couldn't really get into it. Just wasn't feeling it. I don't know what it was. There was something kind of off, but it was definitely great quality as far as it being polished and how like everything sounded. But I just couldn't find myself going back to this one often or really playing it through like more than twice. So for that, I'm putting this one in C.
All right, C for you. See, I'm gonna have this higher than both of you. And again, I didn't want to do this, but I really like this album. I know it's like the most polarizing one by far that they have. And like it's either love or hate. And I'm kind of neither of those, but I'm definitely more towards love than hate. I think Play It Loud is a great, I'll call it the opener because I won't count Before and After because it's just, garbage on the bookends, but it's maybe a minute too long for my taste. Like I feel like it just drones on, but then you've got Well Adjusted, you've got Broken Hearted, More Everything, The Capital. I like You're Not Alone too. Like there's like 5 or 6 songs I really enjoy on here. There's definitely some duds. Like I don't think Everything Sucks is very good. I don't like Quit Your Life. On the Outs and Don't Walk Away. Those are duds for me, but I'm going to go B on this one. Because, I remember getting this. I remember instantly liking it, and all my friends hated it, so got to show it a little love. But
it's still a good album. Yeah, like you said, I don't hate it either, but when there's so many albums, you're kind of drawn towards certain ones, so...
Yeah, some of these were really tough, and this next one is the one I struggled with the most. But Matt, I'll let you take us into Panic.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, Panic, I'm not a fan of this album. This one's going into D for me. So I just didn't like it. I probably played it once, maybe. And I don't know. I just didn't really feel it. I felt like for me, like I really like MxPx going up to probably the Renaissance. And then after that, it kind of fell off for me. So this one I couldn't get into. So I'm putting this one in D for myself.
I'm surprised, man. Like at first I thought your favorites were going to be Pokinatcha and Panic. So I'm really surprised to see Panic down in D. But
yeah,
Aaron, where are you putting this one?
This one's going to be C for me. I was kind of more into heavier music when this came out, so this album didn't stand out to me as much. However, I've gone back to it many times over the years and maybe found some new appreciation for some of the songs and the album as a whole. But yeah, I don't really have any major thoughts or opinions on this album, so it's going to go in C.
All right. Yeah, I went back and forth with C and B, and I'm still not sure where I'm going to put it. Like, it's kind of funny for me. This is like what they tried to do, like Renaissance Part 2. Like they got all that hate from the last record, so they try to reinvent themselves again, go back to the well. But the weird thing is they threw a bunch of songs on here that could have easily fit in with Before Everything and After, like Wrecking Hotel Rooms, Gray Skies Turn Blue, Waiting for the World to End. Like all of those would have fit in on Before Everything and After. And there's two singles, The Darkest Places and Heard That Sound. They're just kind of both by the numbers punk songs for me. Nothing really sticks out. Like my personal favorites always were Cold Streets and The Story. And I like This Weekend too. It's kind of a, boring closer, but I like it. I think I'll show it some love. I'll go B personally. It easily could be a C, but I remember picking this up and having some road trips listening to it. So I'll show some love. I'll go B. And I'll take us into the next one because Aaron, you didn't even want to include this one. So I can kind of guess where you're going to go. But I personally think 1 and 3 is a better song than anything on Panic. Now, I won't speak to the quality of the rest of this record because there's definitely some duds on here, but 1 and 3 is a fantastic song. And for that alone, I'm going to put this in my bonus A slot. And it feels really bad putting it next to Life in General. But I just want to reiterate, these are like bonus tiers. These are just EP and comps rating. This is by no means an A tier record, but for the way we're doing this, I'm going to put it in A. But Aaron, I'm going to let you explain what you do and don't like about this one. Go for it.
Well, for me, I kind of compare this to Let It Happen, right? Where it's got some B-sides and just different things like that on it. And Let It Happen was just so good. And the B-sides on this one definitely fall more flat to me. And I remember when this kind of came out, listening through it, and it was just like, I don't know if this was really worth putting on a release. Maybe it was just, how some bands, need to fulfill a contract or something. So they just kind of throw something together just for the sake of it. Like even the cover art, it all just feels kind of thrown together by just someone, I don't know if the band put this together, but anyways, this is a D tier for me. I don't really have any connection with this album. Yeah, like you said, 1 and 3. There are a few cool songs on here, but nothing that I super love.
All right, Matt, what about you?
Yeah, so for this one, John, I'm going to put this one in my B. I feel like this is, for the EPs that we were doing, I feel like this was a good B1, a solid one out of the rest of them. So this is a B for me.
Yeah, it's decent. I was just looking at the track listing again. I'll be honest, like I never come back and listen to this one. So if we were like ranking this with the rest of the albums, it would probably be in my D tier, but just because of the way we sliced it up, it's going in my A. Again, does not feel good. But Aaron, I'll let you take us into the next one, Secret Weapon.
Yeah, so I thought it was cool that the band, it was back on Tooth and Nail after much drama. For those that don't know, they kind of had a big split with Tooth and Nail, and then after some time kind of came back. They also recorded this one with Aaron Sprinkle, who did their first album, Pokinatcha. So that was kind of cool to see some of those kind of relationships coming back. Yeah, there's definitely some songs on here that I don't like, but overall I think it's a strong album. It has a pretty classic MxPx sound and some standout singles. So for me, this is a B tier album.
All right, Matt, Secret Weapon. What about you?
John, I put Secret Weapon in D. I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. This one, I couldn't really get into. I'm putting this one in D for myself.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm going high in this one. I'm going A. I love this album. I feel like
awesome.
This is attempt 3 by the band to go back to their roots. Like Aaron said, back to Tooth and Nail, back to Aaron Sprinkle. But I think this one is a success. This is the first time I think they kind of captured the essence of slowly going the way of the buffalo. I hear a lot of that sound on here. I mean, just to start off, you got Secret Weapon, Shut It Down, Here's to the Life, 3 great songs. It gets a little bit of aggressive with Contention and Chop Shop. Yeah. Then even on the back end, Bass So Low, Not Nothing, and Biting the Bullet are all great songs. Like, I love this album. I think it's a true return to form. It's my number 3 MxPx record. So I'm going to go A.
Oh, wow.
On Secret Weapon. Yeah, I really enjoy this one. I'm not sure where like the general MxPx fandom ranks this one. I'd be curious to see, but yeah, I like it. But I'll take us into the next one here, which you guys know I love some more covers. And although I think this one is slightly better than the last one, like I like the cover of Kids in America. Of course, I'm going to like the Suburban Home cover. But in the end, it's still a cover album for me. Never listened to this one, so I'm going to go C. Matt, what about you on the cover too?
Yeah, I think I only have a C spot left, so this one's going into C. It's definitely a better cover album than their first cover album, so that's why this one is going into C.
All right, Aaron, what about you?
Yeah, I am the exact same as the two of you. This is C for me as well. Pretty much the same thoughts as John. Mm-hmm. Better than the first cover album, but not really songs I'm super excited about. Again, it's a fun novelty album in their discography. Yeah, I feel like the fans were asking for another covers album. If Mike had bleached hair and Yuri had any hair, maybe I'd bump it up a tier, but sorry, guys.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And again, yeah, going back to the well for sure with the album cover. But Aaron, I'll let you keep going because this is another one I couldn't rank. I had no idea where to put Plans Within Plans. So I'm curious on your thoughts on this next one here from 2012. Just kill the cards. Hope the GD says. And when you play your hand, put on your brother faces.
Yeah, so I was excited that Mike was still writing, even though the band, was kind of technically on a hiatus at this point. This album has some of my has one of my favorite album covers from the band. I love just kind of the classic look of those live shots. While this album doesn't seem to have, some of the hits and real standout tracks as some of the previous albums, I think it has a lot of strong songs on it, and I really enjoy this album. So for me, this is A.
Damn. All right. Wow. I did not see that coming. But Matt, what about you? Plans Within Plans.
Yeah, I did enjoy this album. There were some solid songs on here. But this one's going into C for me. I feel like this is a good, for myself, a C album. Listening to this one.
Yeah, see, I'm kind of with both of you guys. Like, I feel like this is a good album. Like, it's a great listen, like, especially like the top end. There's some great songs on here. Aces Up, Screw Loose, Nothing Left.
Yeah.
Then you got Stay on Your Feet. There's another one I like on here too, but it's not popping out. Whatever. But to me, this feels like just a generic punk album. And I like generic punk albums, but it just doesn't hold a candle to me to like some of the classic MxPx songs. Like Aaron kind of touched on it. There's not really a standout here. The whole thing, for me anyway, just kind of flows together as just kind of like a rehash of classic punk formulas, which it's a good album, but I just don't feel that attachment to it that I do with some of the other in the catalog. So again, I love all the MxPx albums. Some of them have to go in D. So this is going to be one of the unfortunate casualties of the D tier for me. Plans within plans. So we've got one album left. We each have one spot. It's pretty clear where it's going to go. But I'll take us into this next one. This is the MxPx self-titled release from 2018. And this was actually a Kickstarter album. I think they raised like something crazy, like 500K. I don't know if it was that high, but absolutely insane amount of money. We ended up getting only 11 songs, which I was kind of bummed for that amount of money. But the 11 songs we got, I feel like definitely rekindle some of that MxPx flavor that maybe was absent from Plans Within Plans. Like, this kind of feels like Secret Weapon era MxPx for me, mixed in with a little bit of their newer style. Like, they've kind of become more of a punk rock band over the years traditionally, where maybe they were leaning pop punk in the early 2000s. But I really, really like this album. It was my number 3 album of 2018 overall. So I'm going to put this in the C just because it's the only spot I have left. Matt, what about you?
All we want is a Friday night that would treat us right. And if we don't feel like we've got it right, there's always next.
Yeah, I think this is better than a C. I'm putting this in B, definitely. This is a solid B album. I actually played this one a lot, but I couldn't put it any higher than B because the other ones I have up there I feel like are just better, or what I liked or preferred better.
All right, Aaron, last album. What are your thoughts on the self-titled?
Yeah, so while I think this is a great album, song-wise, production is really good. I've just never super connected with it. I know it's a fan favorite already, and one the band says is their best work. I just don't love it. So I know it's kind of a weird thing to say it's a really good album, but I just don't love it. I still listen to it from time to time, but I just don't have the same feelings towards it as many of their others, maybe just because I have so many more years with the other ones. Where this one didn't really impact my life as much. The two standout things for me on this is, this is their first album, I believe, with 2 like full-time guitar players. And I just felt the album was really kind of lacking what 2 guitar players could have done. Like, I don't know, there's some cool riffs on it, but I thought there could have been a lot more. And there's no like kind of hardcore sounding songs on this album, where I feel like most of their albums at least have some kind of darker sounding songs, and this album didn't. So again, not a bad thing, just something I like about their style that I would have liked to hear what a modern kind of more melodic MxPx hardcore song would be like.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially coming off Plans Within Plans, which I think was probably the most aggressive one they've released. It was kind of surprising to see them go that direction. But yeah, I'm kind of with both of you guys. It was good to get that MxPx record. I'm always happy to get one. Like, I mean, in the last 10 years, we've gotten 2. So when we get it, it's great. But yeah, it's, for me anyway, the last 2 have kind of lost a little bit of the magic the earlier ones have. But I still like them. Like I said, this was number 3 of 2018 with me. But this is it, guys. This is the way our list shaped out.
Yeah.
Aaron, what are your thoughts on everyone's list and how it shook out? Any surprises for you?
Well, I mean, there's always going to be some surprises when you have that many albums to choose from, and just different things you're drawn towards and what's going on in your life when an album kind of hits you. So while there are maybe, typical fan favorites, I have seen a lot of lists and things where it's kind of all over the place. So I think it's, I didn't really have any specific expectations, but I'm not super thrown off because I can kind of see where each person is coming from.
Yeah, my biggest shock is, Aaron, your first 2 albums in the D tier. I did not see that coming at all. Like, especially when I found out you were like an old school fan like I am. Like, I wanted to do like something like that, and I don't know if maybe the fear of backlash maybe put Teenage Politics in the C tier, but like, I love that you did that, because like a lot of times, like if I rank a old album low, I'll hear about it. And then my other big shock was Matt having the same S tier full lengths as me. Matt, I definitely thought you would pick like the harder stuff heavier music, especially hearing these albums for the first time. Like, I didn't know what your thoughts would be on that Repassing Moment. For me, that is like a pure early 2000s pop punk sounding record, and that was not your scene at all.
I think, with age, your taste kind of changes a little bit, I guess,
Yeah.
I'm glad, man. I'm glad you got to experience some of my all-time favorite records, and I'm glad we got to sit down with Aaron finally and talk about
that was awesome.
One of our favorite bands of all time. Anything else either of you guys want to say before we wrap this one up?
Well, they're supposed to be working on a new album, so I'm very curious to if there'll be any different influences on it, or if it'll be, similar to the last self-titled one. Just kind of, with bands that have been around so long, like I kind of feel like there's bands like, say, Good Riddance, where it's kind of the same the whole time. A band like Face to Face, where their latest albums are some of my favorite. Or bands like this, where it's kind of a bit more jumping all over the place. So, who knows?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to hear that too. Matt, anything else from you?
No, this was a good time. Again, this is, me coming in as like a first time listener. And I have to say, I really enjoyed, their whole discography, listening to it. I did put some in D and C, and maybe, they shouldn't gone there in the eyes of other MxPx fans. But I feel like this was a good listen, and I'm definitely going to listen to them a little bit more now, throughout the day.
All right, guys. So that's going to wrap up our MxPx tier list. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, make sure and leave a thumbs up, subscribe. We've got a lot of cool stuff on the way. We've got the Lawrence Arms coming up next, followed by Face to Face and Good Riddance. So make sure and subscribe so you get the notifications for those. And I want to thank Aaron again from Growing Up Punk Podcast for coming on. It's been a blast. And thank you everybody again for watching, and we'll see you next time.